Part 160. Divine System of the Strongest Card Supplier in the End Times, Doomsday Strongest Card Supplier. Author, Shu Yu. Chapter 1591. Fang Fan was stunned for a moment, and then became more and more confused. This is, NATO certificate? Want to be my pony? I have a domineering air leaking from my body, and even my former enemies kneel down and beg for shelter? Why do you feel like a fool? You sure? By relying on your relationship with the Haoshan Pavilion, you should be able to get along well in the temple, right? At that time, you will be awarded a civil post. After a period of time, the priesthood level will naturally be promoted. I really find it difficult to understand your operation. Fang Fan shrugged his shoulders, his eyes gradually became earnest, such thoughts were churning in his mind, and he felt more and more normal. Master Fang Fan, you think too highly of me. My father, the owner of the Haoshan Pavilion, has more than 100 sons and daughters. His direct children and gifted children can't take care of them, so how can they care about my existence? Even if Haoshan Pavilion has its own backer in the temple, it has nothing to do with me. Hao Yun suddenly let out a miserable laugh. He didn't know whether it was sad or happy to be born in such a family. Fang Fan opened his mouth in astonishment, more or less surprised. Isn't this F***ing too strong? More than 100 sons and daughters are really born. Why should I accept you? What benefits can you bring me? Or, do you think we have a good relationship? Fang Fan shrugged his shoulders, and said very frankly, he couldn't want to accept a boy just because of a few words. What if he was a rebellious boy? Isn't this asking for trouble for yourself? Why? Hall Master Fang Fan, this is a little tribute from me. In addition to these, I also have a small flying battleship and 1,000 Imperial elites. These will belong to Hall Master Fang Fan. I would like to follow Lord Hall Master forever and never betray. Hao Yun knelt down on one knee, eyes like torches. While talking, he handed over a storage ring. Fang Fan immediately opened it. 100,000 star cores. Fang Fan suddenly opened his eyes wide, and the smile on his face suddenly became more. It's just a small problem. As long as the star core is in place, everything will be fine. My lord, I only have so much in my hand. I'll save some more and continue to honor my lord. I just hope that Lord Hall Master can give me a chance to join your command. Let me fight side by side with you. While Hao Yun was talking, his face couldn't help flushing a little more, and the emotion in his mind became more and more sincere. Give you a chance. Cough, it's not impossible. You are so sincere, it's not good to reject you. I'm just curious, why did you choose me? You are still a son of a second-rank force. Even if you are not favored in the Haoshan Pavilion, you should be able to find a place to install it. There shouldn't be any problem, right? While Fang Fan was talking, the curious expression on his face became more and more. These thoughts were churning in his mind, and his sense of curiosity was gradually increasing. Do you want to tell the truth? Hao Yun fell into deep thought for a while, and then said with a serious face. What do you say? Fang Fan glanced at Hao Yun, and found that this guy was quite interesting. Because I think you in the future will stand on the highest peak of this land. I even think that if Haoshan Pavilion continues to fight against you, it will definitely be destroyed. The future Pope of the Temple of the Alliance of Light must be you. You will create an unprecedented prosperous world. You. Divine System of the Strongest Card Supplier in the End Times, Doomsday Strongest Card Supplier. Author, Shu Yu. Chapter 1592. The sycophants came on stage, and the sycophants came one after another, which was really interesting. Fang Fan heard it, and the smiles on his face inexplicably increased. It's interesting, really interesting. How does it sound so exciting? Cough, although you are telling the truth, but in the future, speak more modestly. I have never been the kind of high-profile person. Fang Fan said solemnly, looking at Hao Yun at this moment feels much pleasing to the eye. Of course, the vigilance that should have, still cannot be relaxed. Going back to the 308th Bronze Legion of the Azure Dragon Legion, just follow my orders. Fang Fan nodded secretly, as a recognition of Hao Yun's existence. This is to give away the Star Core and the battleship, and the words are nice. If you don't accept it, it will be unreasonable. 100,000 Star Cores is not a small number. A small flying battleship is equivalent to a 1-star sanctuary combat power, and it is also extraordinary. In this way, adding the God and Devil warship and another small flying warship that he still controls, it is equivalent to having 3 1-star sanctuary combat power. You accepted me. Many, thank you, Lord Palace Master. Don't worry, starting today, I will definitely not let you down. I will do whatever you ask me to do. There is no other way. Saddle up and back, serve with death. Bow down. Boom, boom, a bunch of nonsense. Fang Fan felt his head buzzing. Hao Yun. You traitor. What are you doing? You kowtow to him. You bastard. Get out of here. In the distance, another man in a white robe appeared, but the white on his body was more intense compared to the white on Hao Yun's body. The person who came was Hao Zhan, who had just lost to Fang Fan's 500,000 star cores and several Huazhong pills. He was the third son of the pavilion master of the Haoshan Pavilion, and he was also a direct descendant. Although Hao Yun and he are both the sons of the master of the Haoshan Pavilion, they are far apart in terms of status and favor. Third brother, you don't need to take care of my affairs. Now that I have worshipped Master Fang Fan, I hope you will not think of going against Master Fang Fan in the future, otherwise let alone that Master Fang Fan can't spare you, I might not let you succeed. Hao Yun's face changed suddenly, as if he didn't expect Hao Zhan to appear here suddenly, but he changed his thinking in an instant, and then he held his head upright and stood upright. Now that he is Fang Fan's horseboy, he naturally wants to show the momentum that a horseboy should have. Okay. Is this a rebellion? Bastard. Today I will clean up the door and kill you, bastard. Hao Zhan snorted coldly, then drew out his weapon, and rushed towards Hao Yun's direction. In terms of cultivation realm, Hao Hazan is indeed not at the same level. Hao Zhan, a low-level quasi-sage. Hao Yun, the 7-star emperor. If this is done, it is basically a spike game. Clang. Boom. A sound of metal collision came, and then Hao Yun's body stepped backwards like a kite with a broken string. Fang Fan waved the holy sword in his hand, his expression remained the same. Hao Yun is mine now, it's not your turn to teach me a lesson. For Hao Yun's sake, I don't care about today's matter with you. From now on, how far away, how far away? If you provoke me again, it may not be just a simple pain in the flesh. Fang Fan narrowed his eyes, with murderous intent in them. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Divine System of the Strongest Card Supplier in the End Times, Doomsday Strongest Card Supplier. Author, Shu Yu. Chapter 1593. When it's time to be resolute, naturally you can't shrink back. To deal with someone like Hao Zhan, it is useless to keep saying that there is a high probability. Only by making him feel the pain can he learn a lesson from it. At this point, Fang Fan has a unique experience. Hao Zhan's face turned ugly for a while, he gritted his teeth, and wanted to pounce on Fang Fan's attack, but after carefully considering the price of impulsiveness, he chose to remain silent. At this moment, he has no such qualifications. If you are not careful, you will be cold directly. With his tail tucked and his head lowered, his face gradually became ferocious, his fingernails were inserted into his palms, and strands of blood flowed out. At this moment, he didn't care about it at all. He was running forward numbly like a walking dead, with his forehead the last one was covered with cold sweat. "Let's go." Fang Fan beckoned, and then led Hao Zhan directly into the Hall of Contribution. Entering the main hall and taking a glance at it, there are all kinds of items, and correspondingly, there are also various prices. Fang Fan saw the source of God's power. 1 trace of God's source power, 100 contribution points. After seeing the price tag, Fang Fan frowned subconsciously. He has more than 2.8 million contribution points in his hand at the moment. According to this exchange ratio, he can only exchange for less than 30,000 strands of God's origin power. 30,000 strands of God's origin power is 300 strands of God's origin power. What is this enough for? A total of 2,000 strands of God's source power are needed to revive the sword spirit and sword body of Zhan Tianjian, and 7,000 strands of God's source power is needed to revive Xiao Xiao. This is still far from what he expected. Fang Fan originally thought that the several million contribution points in his own hands were quite a lot, but now it seems that the difference is really not a star and a half. Exchange for 10,000 strands of God's origin power. Fang Fan sighed, and then made a decision. 10,000 traces of God's source power require a total of 1 million contribution points. The one who was in charge of exchanging the source power of God was an 8th rank priest. After seeing Fang Fan's 5th rank bishop's attire, he immediately showed a sincere expression. Fang Fan nodded, and then delivered the bright contribution order in his hand. After some procedures, 1 million contribution points were allocated, and at the same time Fang Fan got 10,000 strands of God's source power. In this place, the source of God can be used as a star core, and even to a certain extent, it is better than a star core. Fang Fan didn't dump all the contribution points in his hands. Generally speaking, there is no need for this. After all, even if all of them were exchanged, the source of God's power exchanged would not be of much use. As for the exchange of this 10,000 silk God's source power, in fact, the main purpose is to improve the quality of the heroes under his command. In the past, he was a low-level quasi-sage, and a group of heroes could not be higher than him by 3 levels, so the highest was the ultimate quasi-sage, but the upper limit of the potential of a gold-quality hero was the ultimate quasi-sage, so it was not a big problem. But now, he has been promoted to the middle-level quasi-sacred realm, and all the heroes have also risen with the tide, and the upper limit of potential has broken through to the 1-star holy realm. Of course, the prerequisite for them to be promoted is that the hero quality must first be promoted to platinum level. The most important thing to improve the quality of a hero is the power of God. A gold quality hero promotion card requires 1,000 God's power to promote a gold quality hero to platinum quality. Fang Fan thought to himself, and then continued to peek around. Divine System of the Strongest Card Supplier in the End Times, Doomsday Strongest Card Supplier. Author, Shu Yu. Chapter 1594. War Slave Area. Fang Fan frowned secretly, then strode forward in a circle. Are there any war slaves of the desolate race? Fang Fan asked bluntly. At this moment, the person in charge of exchanging war slaves in the area is a young man in a white robe. Judging by the decoration, he should be a priest of the 10th rank. Seeing a bishop of the 5th rank like Fang Fan, he still seems a little cautious. Yes, a group of slaves from the desolate race were just enshrined here. My lord, please come inside. The young man in white robes led the way respectfully. Fang Fan nodded secretly, followed behind without saying much. Hao Yun also quickened his pace and followed directly. My lord, the war slaves of the desolate race are generally rebellious, so most people are not willing to buy such slaves. If encounters happen on the battlefield, those stubborn desolate people would rather die in battle than be captured. The only surviving slaves of the desolate race were basically captured after being injured, and then threatened them with the old and weak of the desolate race, and then they gradually succumbed. It's good to use them as cannon fodder, but in many cases, if you don't handle it properly, you are very likely to be backlashed by them, so we still have to take it seriously. The young man in white robe said while reminding. Fang Fan didn't say much, just pondered sadly. My lord, the price/performance ratio of the war slaves of the desolate race is too low. At the same price, we can definitely buy some more docile war slaves. The war slaves of the Yang clan are very good, and they would not choose to resist at all under normal circumstances. Hao Yun approached secretly, then said immediately. Fang Fan glanced at Hao Yun indifferently, and then said, "Are you teaching me how to do things?" Fang Fan learned this sentence from Dongguosheng, and it can be regarded as learning and using it now. Hao Yun's body trembled, and he quickly shrank his neck, not daring to speak any more. I want as many slaves of the desolate race as there are here. Fang Fan waved his hand and said directly and calmly. Currently there are more than 41,000 desolate war slaves in the Hall of Contribution. Among them, there are 33,000 male slaves of the desolate tribe and 8,000 female slaves of the desolate tribe. The male slaves of the desolate race are all in the Emperor Realm and Quasi-Holy Realm. Among them, there are 37 war slaves of the desolate race in the Quasi-Holy Realm, and each exchange requires 1,000 contribution points. There are 33,000 war slaves of the desolate race in the Emperor's Realm, and each exchange requires 10 contribution points. There are 8,000 female Baron war slaves, and each exchange requires 5 contribution points. If you exchange all of them, you will need a total of 470,000 contribution points. The 10th rank priest who was in charge of slave exchange said respectfully. In the Temple of the Alliance of Light, there is a strict hierarchy, and the high-level priests have a high status compared to the low-level priests, so they should not be neglected easily. There are no desolate children. With the thought, Fang Fan frowned and said. No. No. The main reason is that it's not worth it. A child of the desolate race is worth a contribution point. The key is that no one wants it. Therefore, even if they are captured on the battlefield, there is a high probability that they will be slaughtered directly. The young man in white robe lowered his head and explained indifferently. Fang Fan clenched his fist secretly, and took a deep breath. There was a sense of grief and indignation in his heart, but it was more of a kind of silence. The law of the jungle preys on the strong, and the strong is king. Divine system of the strongest card supplier in the end times, Doomsday strongest card supplier. Author, Shu Yu. Chapter 1595. I want all the slaves of the desolate race here. Tisk, these slaves of the desolate race are good things. Damn it, it's best for them to charge into battle. Whether it's a man or a woman, everyone is qualified as cannon fodder. Just as Fang Fan was thinking, a rough voice came from outside the door, and he saw a man with a beard striding in. He was wearing a hard-wearing sword, and he seemed to be an officer who had been in the army. Hello, all the slaves of the desolate race here have been purchased by the bishop, so please come again next time. The young man in white robe hesitated for a moment. He probably also saw that this rough man was not easy to provoke, but finally gritted his teeth and walked over to remind him. What do you mean? Do you think I can't pay contribution points? Or do you think he is superior because he is a priest? Labor and management will not follow this set. Today, labor and management put the words here. What the labor and management want these barren war slaves, what can they do? Labor and capital are also fighting for the temple. Why? How about a few war slaves and cannon fodder? These war slaves of the desolate race are all owned by labor and capital. You, go away. The rough man strode over, looking very wild, and even stood directly in front of Fang Fan with a haughty posture. Fang Fan secretly squinted his eyes, and there were flashes of light in his eyes. He never wanted to find trouble, but many things, all kinds of troubles insisted on finding him. Let me remind you again, I have already bought these slaves of the desolate race. If you continue to provoke trouble, you will bear the consequences. Fang Fan glanced coldly at the bearded and rugged man in front of him. He thought he had done his best. If it were normal, he would have rushed over. Now the timing is really special. Relatively speaking, he still needs to pay attention to some influences. After all, this is the Temple of the Alliance of Light, and it is his first time here to hang out. Yoha! What the hell are you still pretending to be with me? Aren't you a 5th rank bishop? What's the matter? Do you really think you are awesome? Do you know who this is in front of you? Huang Fukui, Deputy Chief of the 3rd Silver Legion of the Azure Dragon Legion. A 5th rank bishop, let me be a man with your tail between your legs, get out. This time, before the rough young man could speak, a cultivator with fair skin beside him walked over, looking extremely arrogant. I don't care who you are, the slaves of the desolate race, it's already mine. This is the Temple of the Alliance of Light, not a place where you can run wild. Get lost. Fang Fan frowned. Originally, he just wanted to come here to buy these slaves of the desolate race, but he didn't expect to encounter these things here, and all kinds of troubles continued. What the hell is your attitude? Are you so arrogant in front of our Deputy Army Commander Huang Fu? Today I will teach you how to be a human being. Seeing that Fang Fan didn't give him face, the cultivator with fair and tender face immediately became furious and started screaming. The sharp voice almost killed Fang Fan on the spot. While yelling, the cultivator with fair and tender face raised his hand and wanted to shave Fang Fan's ears. Snapped. A loud slap sounded, and Fang Fan had already struck ahead of time. A slap across the face was clear. This cultivator with a white and tender face looks extremely arrogant, but he is actually a cultivator of the Emperor's realm. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Divine System of the Strongest Card Supplier in the End Times, Doomsday Strongest Card Supplier. Author, Shu Yu. Chapter 1596. You dare to hit me. AHH. Rebellion. Rebellion. You bastard. Do you know what you're doing? Whoa. He hit me. The cultivator with a fair and tender face suddenly almost popped his eyes, and while shouting, his body was still shaking violently. While speaking, he threw himself directly on the rough-looking man, and there was even a whiny feeling in his voice. Fang Fan's head is full of black lines, he seems to have discovered some blind spot. Hey baby, stop crying, I'll teach him a lesson for you. The rough man comforted the handsome and fair-skinned male practitioner, and then looked at Fang Fan angrily. You, break your arms and leave on your knees. The rough man squinted his eyes, and the murderous intent in his eyes was concentrated. Such thoughts were churning in his mind. As he spoke, the unruly look on his face became more and more obvious. When speaking, speak directly and in a commanding tone. Stupid. Fang Fan curled his lips, how could he meet such a fool anywhere? Brain kicked by a donkey? Asshole. How dare you be rude to me? I must teach you a lesson today. The rough man felt that he couldn't keep his face, and immediately clamored to rush over. If you want to fight, come. It's really annoying to talk nonsense. If you don't have the courage to fight, just shut up. I don't have that much time to spend with you, a coward, talking here. Fang Fan glanced disdainfully at these people in front of him, although they were screaming like ghosts and wolves, they really didn't have the guts to be presumptuous here. If it's okay to slap a few slaps and there's not much movement, but if a full-scale battle is really launched, it means that this matter has become a big deal. Needless to say, what will happen after the incident becomes serious is understandable. When the time comes, it will be done directly, and the entire hall of contribution will be in turmoil. This is the temple of contribution of the Temple of the Alliance of Light, and the territory of the Temple of the Alliance of Light. Who dares to act presumptuously here? The rough man suddenly fell silent, his expression became even more sinister. Obviously Fang Fan's words touched his heart, and he didn't have the guts to do so. Seeing the rough man hesitate, the handsome fair-skinned young man who was slapped suddenly became unhappy, and immediately writhed in the rough man's arms. Deputy Army Commander, you want to make the decision for me. Everyone was beaten. The delicate and fair young man suddenly said in a coquettish tone that was disgusting to the extreme, twisting his body while speaking. Fang Fan. This is so humming disgusting. Fang Fan took a deep breath, unable to bear the urge to vomit. This is the most precise magic attack, killing the enemy invisible. I have to say that this method does have something. The rough man was already dull and irritable because of his hands and feet. Hearing the nonsense of the handsome young man, his anger immediately climbed to the peak, and then he slapped him with a big ear. Snapped. Extremely crisp. Shut up for labor. Whispering, don't you think it's bothering you? The rough man took a few breaths and said through gritted teeth. As for the handsome young man at the side, he opened his eyes wide and looked at the rough man with disbelief, as if he was surprised by the rough man's action. You said you would love me forever, you said you wouldn't hurt me, you Boyukuro. Beep. Divine System of the Strongest Card Supplier in the End Times, Doomsday Strongest Card Supplier. Author, Shuyu. Chapter 1597. The handsome young man twisted his body suddenly, tears flickered in his eyes. Fang Fan took a deep breath, turned around and put it on Hao Yun's body. How did you say this tiger wolf word? If you listen to it anymore, your ears will explode. I didn't read the almanac when I went out today, so I encountered these strange things. The rough-faced man turned dark and didn't answer anything, but directly focused his eyes on Fang Fan. I'm Huang Fukui, Deputy Commander of the 3rd Silver Legion of the Azure Dragon Legion. Give me face, and give me these slaves of the desolate race. Let's forget about today's affairs, otherwise, even if you are in the temple, I can't do anything to you, but I don't believe you are outside the scope of the temple. You should be very clear about what the deputy head of a silver-level legion represents. This is not something you, a 5th-rank bishop, can handle. The rough-faced man was still threatening tirelessly as he spoke. Fang Fan opened his eyes, his thoughts gradually churned, and now it is getting more and more interesting. Giving you face? What are you? You are here with me, do you have face? Count all the slaves of the desolate race for me, I will take them away now. Hurry up and do it. What are you doing in a daze? Fang Fan looked directly at the 10th-rank priest who was in charge of slave exchange, and said indifferently. Yes, I will do it right away, my lord bishop will wait. The 10th-rank priest who was in charge of exchanging war slaves was already sweating profusely at this moment. He took a breath while talking, and the sense of panic in his eyes was very real. These few are big bosses that he can't afford to mess with. He is a 10th-rank priest, belonging to the lowest level among the clergy, just entering the rank. And Fang Fan is a 5th-rank bishop, 10 levels behind him. As for this rough and tough guy, he is the deputy head of the silver-ranked legion, and his status is also extraordinary. You must know that there are only 5 gold legions under the command of the entire temple, and if you convert it to 50 silver-level legions, you can imagine the gold content. My lord, the one we are going to take up this time seems to be the 8th Bronze Legion under the 3rd Silver Legion of the Azure Dragon Legion, so the serial number is the 308th Legion of the Azure Dragon Legion. My lord, Are we? At this time, Hao Yun suddenly leaned into Fang Fan's ear and whispered, he couldn't help showing a hesitant look on his face, the current form still looks somewhat weird. If it develops according to this model, then the problem will be even more serious. If you are not careful, you will die before you leave the teacher. Fang Fan frowned secretly, he really didn't care about it just now. Is there such a coincidence? The 308th Bronze Legion of the Azure Dragon Legion, the serial number 3 in front indicates the 3rd Silver Legion, and the serial number 08 indicates the 8th Bronze Legion under the 3rd Silver Legion. These are common sense. In this way, is this guy still his immediate boss? Of course, Fang Fan belongs to the management of the Temple of the Alliance of Light and is directly responsible for the Temple of the Alliance of Light. There are still some differences between him and this guy. No problem. Fang Fan smiled indifferently, let alone a deputy head of the Silver Legion, even if the head of the army came, so what? I will be my supervisor of the Bronze Legion, don't come to provoke me, otherwise no one will feel better. Divine System of the Strongest Card Supplier in the End Times, Doomsday Strongest Card Supplier. Author, Shu Yu. Chapter 1598. Hao Yun opened his mouth, as if he wanted to persuade him again, but after seeing the cold expression on Fang Fan's face, he consciously chose to remain silent. There are some things that he himself understands, completely understands. With the temperament of Lord Hall Master, it is even more difficult to get him to succumb, so I still don't hold on to this hope. At this moment, the face of the rough man on the opposite side became more and more gloomy. He thinks that he has already made a great deal of concessions, so it can be regarded as a good word? But now? Or this attitude? Finding fault on purpose? Deliberately not giving him face? To embarrass him on purpose? Now that they are in the Temple of the Alliance of Light, everything needs to be silent. But that doesn't mean they'll always be here. Very good. Very good. Very good. I hope you can still have such courage after you go out. Don't let me down. The rough man clenched his teeth, his gaze was like a torch, and then he strode away, and finally gave up. The deputy head of the Silver Legion? This title is not enough to be arrogant here. My Lord Bishop, the 470,000 contribution points have been deducted. Another 41,000 desolate race slaves have been assigned to a transport ship. According to the regulations, this transport ship was sent separately. I hope you will come next time. The 10th rank priest who was in charge of slave exchange delivered Fang Fan's bright contribution order respectfully, not daring to slack off in the slightest. While talking, he immediately nodded his head, bowing his head in a very real way. Okay, I'll take them with me later. I have to go shopping first. As Fang Fan spoke, he continued to wander around. It took 1,000,000 contribution points to exchange 10,000 strands of God's origin power, and more than 400,000 contribution points to exchange 41,000 desolate race slaves. Right now, Fang Fan still has more than 1.4 million contribution points in his hand, barely spending half of it. 1 star core, 1 contribution point. 1 trace of divine power, 100 contribution points. If it is divided according to this method, the value of a trace of God's source power is equivalent to 100 star cores. Fang Fan nodded secretly, silently making calculations in his heart. Overall, the form is relatively normal. This also sets off the preciousness of the source power of God from the side. You must know that contribution points are not so good. 1 contribution point can only be obtained by beheading a dark faction cultivator in the Emperor realm, and there are only 100 cultivators in the quasi-sacred realm dark faction. If it wasn't for a big battle, wanting to accumulate millions of contribution points would be like a dream. If you want to revive Xiao Xiao and Xantianjian, there is still a gap of 9,000 strands of God's origin power, which is equivalent to 900,000 strands of God's origin power, and one strand of God's origin power is equivalent to 100 contribution points. Converted again, you need 90 million contribution points. The corner of Fang Fan's mouth twitched, feeling his scalp numb for no reason. He suddenly still felt that it was more reliable to advance to the priesthood level by accumulating battle merits. As long as he was promoted from a 5th-rank bishop to a 4th-rank archbishop, he would be able to initially complete the system's latent task. The source of power is in hand. The remaining contribution points, all are exchanged for star cores. Then take these star cores and go to promote my personal legion. I'm about to go to the 308th Bronze Legion of the Azure Dragon Legion to take up the post. The barrel of the gun must be strong, otherwise how will you build battle honors? You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Divine System of the Strongest Card Supplier in the End Times, Doomsday Strongest Card Supplier. Author, Shu Yu. Chapter 1599. Fang Fan thought to himself, so he didn't hesitate anymore, and directly exchanged the remaining 1.4 million contribution points for 1.4 million star cores. In addition to the 500,000 won by Hao Zhan, the third son of the pavilion master of Haoshan Pavilion, and the 100,000 star cores offered by Hao Yun, the number of star cores in Fang Fan's hands has exceeded 2 million at this moment. 2 million star cores can already do a lot of things to some extent. Now he has 10 individual legions under his command, among which the Blood Shura Legion is the strongest. Relatively speaking, it is a 1-star sanctuary realm, but the remaining legions seem to be a bit stretched, and all of them are invincible. It is the realm of the 10-star Emperor. In the past, the 10-star Emperor's realm legion was already very strong, but now it is obviously far behind. It seems that there are quite a lot of star cores, but in fact, if they are really used to promote the legion, the difference is not a star. A 10-star Emperor Master Realm Legion needs more than 1 million Quasi-Sage level promotion cards to be promoted to a low-level Quasi-Sacred level, and the price of a Quasi-Sage level promotion card is 1 star core. That is to say, the cost to successfully promote a 10-star Emperor Lord Realm Legion to a low-level Quasi-Saint Realm is 1 million star cores. The 2 million star cores in my hand are enough to promote 2 legions. From this point of view, it's really not cost-effective to buy promotion cards to promote the legion, and these frequent expenses are somewhat unacceptable. The holy cards in the general auction system are only a few 100,000 star cores. If you can find some legion experience cards, legion upgrade cards, etc., it would be great. Of course, this possibility is really not great. At present, the low-level quasi-jihad power is not too weak. There are 9 10-star Emperor Master Realm Legions under my command. Which legion is the key to promotion? Fang Fan narrowed his eyes secretly, silently calculating in his heart. The low-heavy machine gun corps is the firepower guarantee on a large-scale battlefield. It needs to be promoted. The other is the Yellow Turban Peace Warlock Legion. Once the Yellow Turban Peace Warlocks led by Guan Hai use the Sacrifice Summoning Legion exclusive skill on the battlefield, they will be able to summon an extremely large number of powerful combat forces at once. This is also impossible. Obliterate. In addition, Warlock skills such as Corrosion and Curse can also kill enemies invisible. Fang Fan secretly planned in his heart, but in fact he already had a plan. With a thought, Fang Fan took Hao Yun directly outside the temple. Choose to promote the 10-star Emperor level low heavy machine gunner army and the Yellow Scarf Peace Warlock army. Ding. Consuming 1.1 million Quasi-Sage level promotion cards, the 10-star Emperor level low heavy machine gunner corps was successfully promoted to a low-level Quasi-Sage level low heavy machine artillery corps. Ding. Consuming 1 million Quasi-Holy level promotion cards, the 10-star Sovereign level Yellow Turban Peace Warlock Corps has successfully been promoted to a low-rank Quasi-Holy level Yellow Turban Peace Warlock Corps. 2 system prompts sounded in his ears at the same time, and Fang Fan nodded secretly. The promotion of the yellow turban typing warlock is only a slight change in clothing, but the low heavy machine gunner corps has been directly promoted to the low heavy machine artillery corps. From Fang Fan's point of view, they have already completed the process of changing shotguns. The 12 heavy machine artillerymen of the heavy machine artillery corps have all replaced their heavy machine guns with larger ones at this moment. The diameter of the nozzle is about 20 centimeters. This kind of heavy machine gun can do rapid fire, of course. The shooting speed is definitely not as fast as that of a heavy machine gun, which can reach thousands of bullets per minute, but under normal circumstances, as long as there are enough bullets, it is enough to shoot dozens of rounds of 20 centimeters small caliber shells in 1 minute. Divine system of the strongest card supplier in the end times, Doomsday strongest card supplier. Author, Shu Yu. Chapter 1600. Fang Fan took a deep breath, and the corners of his mouth raised silently. He seemed to have foreseen the scene where the French heavy machine artillery legion was carrying heavy machine guns and shooting wildly on the battlefield. One cannonball goes down, and the whole litter is paralyzed. Immediately after another shell went down, it was directly cool. The biggest feature of this kind of heavy machine gun is that the rate of fire is fast enough and the power is strong enough. The key is that it can change its direction at any time. The 2 million star cores are not in vain. The corners of Fang Fan's mouth turned upwards, and the smiles on his face became more involuntary. Such thoughts churned in his mind and gradually became real. The low heavy machine artillery corps and the newly promoted yellow turban typing warlock corps will definitely lead a wave. Master! Master! Seeing Fang Fan's return, Galen Vega and other heroes and a group of legions swarmed over, with anxious expressions on their faces. After Fang Fan entered the Temple of the Alliance of Light, he suddenly lost the news. Naturally, they felt very anxious, and it was completely normal to show such a gesture. Fang Fan took a look at several heroes. As he expected, only Kyle, a platinum hero, was promoted to the 1-star sanctuary level. As for the other 5 heroes, they were still in the quasi-sacred level. Hall Master Fang Fan. My son-in-law. Just as Fang Fan was thinking, Tianhu Meyer and Chen Tianyuan came out from the side. My son-in-law, I knew you could do it. A good son-in-law is indeed not something in the pool. Once the wind and clouds change, the dragon. Just after joining the Temple of the Alliance of Light, he was awarded the priesthood of a 5th-rank bishop, and was even appointed as a supervisor in the bronze-ranked legion, who has enjoyed this kind of honor. Son-in-law, you are the only one. Chen Tianyuan directly gave a thumbs up, and while talking, the smiles on his face became more and more, such thoughts were churning in his mind, and the feelings gradually became more profound. I always thought you could. Tianhu Meyer just said this, but her beautiful eyes were fixed on Fang Fan. Her intentions were unclear. Father-in-law, Tianhu Saintess praised it. Fang Fan habitually cupped his hands and said, then pondered for a while, and said again, I asked Dongguo Saint before, and I originally hoped that you could all go with me to the station of the 308th Bronze Legion of the Azure Dragon Legion, but Saint Dongguo only agreed to let my guards and the Tianhu clan follow my command. As for my father-in-law's Chen Tian clan, because they are not weak, I can't take them away together. My father-in-law may have to act alone next time. Fang Fan thought to himself, then spoke directly, speaking very clearly. Act alone. Hey, actually, I had a premonition. This time, the Chen Tian clan has hundreds of thousands of elite soldiers from the Emperor's realm and tens of millions of ordinary soldiers from the real King's realm. They act together, it's somewhat inconvenient. Those big figures in the Temple of the Alliance of Light will also have their own considerations. My son-in-law, don't worry, I'll be fine, you take care of yourself, stay on top of everything, don't be impulsive, Shir is still waiting for you to go back. When Chen Tianyuan said this, he couldn't help but glanced at Tianhu Meyer, what he wanted to say, it was obvious, he was clearly implying something. In particular, Chen Tianqi was mentioned. Fang Fan shrugged his shoulders, this father-in-law is really on point, don't you think there will be some tricks between him and this Tianhu Meyer?